Good morning, everyone. Many of you have been with us since 7:30 this morning. We appreciate that. We're now going to call to order the full Appropriations Committee for consideration of House Bill 81, which is the fiscal year 22 budget that will begin July 1 of this coming year. As we get ready to start, I always like to ask for a little bit of help, and so I'm going to turn to Chairman Perkle, if he will, to give us an invocation.
Bow with me, if you will. Dear Heavenly Father, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew thy Holy Spirit within me. Lord, please grant us wisdom, grant us understanding, be with our families, hedge around them while we're away, hedge my heart that I can love others as I love myself. In your name I pray, amen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those of you joining us online, those here in the room, the tracking sheet is being handed out to you. Those of you online, you should have just received an email, either from my email address or Ashley Newton, my administrative assistant, which contains a link to the tracking document if you're following along online. So please make sure to pull that document up so you can follow along with us. We'll give you just a second to do that. We'll remind everyone that it's here. Testing is available downstairs until 11 o'clock. You'll need to be tested today in order to be here tomorrow. And if you're not here in the building, you will need to have talked to Keith Williams in the Speaker's office about acceptable testing away from the building. I think that covers all of the housekeeping items that I have, and I will turn the chairmanship of the meeting over to our Vice Chairman Ridley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, at this time, the chair recognizes the Chairman of Appropriations, Chairman Terry England, to present the committee substitute to House Bill 81, the FY 2022 Appropriations.
All right, good morning, everyone. Again, you have in front of you the tracking sheet, which is the best way to follow through. Thank you to all of our members, all of our subcommittee chairs, and most of all to our staff, Martha and Christine, and all of the folks in the House Budget and Research Office have done an incredible job. This has been a most unusual year. I think that's probably an understatement as it relates to budgeting. Coming out of last year with the break and then going into a 2-week sprint there at the end, trying to pull together the FY21 budget, coming back and trying to do that sprint again on the amended FY21 budget, and then rolling into the work on the 22 budget. So my hat is off to all of you. Thank you, committee members, for your participation over the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of meetings, a lot of hearings, a lot of time spent on Zoom, and a lot of time spent in person. But we'll roll through this document fairly quickly here this morning. Y'all have, most everybody's been online or here in the room listening to the subcommittee presentations, so we'll probably not go quite in as much depth as they did. But what this does is help you understand how all the pieces weave together. Section 1, no changes, Georgia Senate. Section 2, the Georgia House of Representatives. You'll see the restoration there of the funds that we cut out last year as we were looking to do the 10% statewide cut. The restorations and providing restorations as well for the special session for reapportionment later on this year. Joint offices of the General Assembly. Again, starting there, it's the first time you'll see some adjustments for TRS, Teacher Retirement System. I will not pick those up other than a casual mention in the document. But you'll also see at 3.1.2 the restoration there for IT, legal fees, personal services, and other items that it costs to operate the General Assembly. 3.1.3, an add there for legal fees as it relates to reapportionment. And then at 3.2.1 and 3.1, you'll see restorations as well from the cuts taken last year. Section 4, audits and accounts. 4.1.2, you'll see some added funds there for additional auditors. We're proposing that the Ways and Means Chairman and Senate Finance Committee chairs will be able to request up to 5 in-depth audits of our tax credit programs a year. That will fund those auditors. 4.1.3 an add of about $650,000 there for the audits that are related to the CARES Act funds that we've been receiving as well. 4.1.4, an addition for some software maintenance. Section 5, Court of Appeals. Most of what you're going to see throughout the court system are going to be restorations as it relates to the reductions we made in FY21. You'll see the first one of those starting at 5.1.5. 5.1.8 relates to one of the judges that is currently off the bench and providing for a temporary replacement there. 5.1.9, again, the restoration of 21 reductions, as well as 5.2.6. Moving into Judicial Council, 6.4.5. That is something we funded a quarter of in the amended FY21 budget, and moving forward with the Georgia Courts Registrar System to connect all the courts together and update their software systems as well. 6.4.6 are matching funds. Slow down just a little bit. Matching funds for a federal grant there for the Child Support Collaborative Grant. And then moving down to judicial qualifications at 6.5.1, funding one of the requested attorney positions, and then a restoration at 6.5.2. 7.1.1 under juvenile court judges. That position that was asked for is currently funded with federal funds in DJJ, so we're just saying no at this time. 7.2.2 for juvenile court judges. You'll see the additions for the Griffin and Gwinnett judicial circuits, as well as 7.2.3 where the Columbia Judicial Circuit will be created as well. Prosecuting attorneys, 8.2.2, you'll see there the governor's recommendation. Of course, remember, in judiciary, the governor's recommendation has to reflect what the judiciary sends to him. We're the ones that get to make those adjustments there. What we're saying at this point is only hire 7 additional assistant district attorneys and trying to maintain parity with our public defenders. You'll see an ad over in public defenders in a little bit as well. 8.2.5, again, some funds there to help with staff retention. 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, and 2.9 relate to judgeships being created in 4 different circuits there. 8.3.3 under prosecuting attorneys. You'll see slight reduction from the governor's recommendation there on training. They're doing most of that virtually, and so we're just saying that with that and not having to be there in person, there will be some savings. And again, under Superior Courts 9.1.1, you'll see restoration of those personal services, and then the move at 9.3.10 of $850,000 transferring over to the Columbia Circuit. Supreme Court, Section 10, you'll see again restorations at 10.1.7, plus providing for a new IT position at 10.1.8. That position will also be shared with the Business Court. State Accounting Office, down under the Georgia Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission at 11.5.1. See 2 ads there. The first one is for some staff: a senior auditor, a junior attorney, a financial assistant, and IT position, and some vendor expenses, along with a $300,000 ad for an outstanding IT bill that they need to pay as well. Section 12, 12.2.1, this is where our compensation resolutions come into play. And what we're saying there is that if those receive final passage through the General Assembly, then we will fund those at the appropriate time. Moving on to Section 13, Department of Agriculture. You'll see there at 13.2.2 under Consumer Protection, the additions and annualizing the positions for the Georgia Hemp Program. 13.2.3 relate to critical positions and being able to retain those folks. Those are our food inspectors and animal health inspectors, and we've got quite a turnover rate there due to the low pay and just trying to bump those positions up a little bit so there's not a constant churn. Then at 13.2.4, provide funds for 1 soil scientist and 1 compliance specialist and 2 vehicles pursuant to House Bill 1057 from last year's session. 13.4.2, just establishing that the Farmers and Consumers Market Bulletin will be the official regulatory and educational tool for the GATE program, the Georgia Ag Tax Exemption Program. And then at 13.4.3, retaining the $120,000 that we put in there last year to maintain the operation of the Thomasville, Cordell, and Savannah farmers markets. Continuing on under the Department of Ag attached agencies, 13.6.1, you see a restoration there back to the original base for the Exposition Authority, which is the Georgia National Fairgrounds. Payments to Georgia Development Authority, a language item there at 13.7.1. When we did our special session for the hurricane, you'll recall that we put some money in place for grants as it related to forestry cleanup. Those grants have been fully out the door to all the applicants that have asked for help with that. There's about $7.8 million remaining, and what we're doing here is just allowing the Georgia Development Authority to roll it into their loan program to continue making ag loans across the state. 13.8.1 under soil and water, you'll see a new rural waters specialist position added there. Banking and finance, 14.2.1, again, retention issues there, quite a bit of turnover. These individuals, there are about 49 of those in examination and licensing positions, and it's basically a 2-for-1 return. So every dollar we put into those positions, we get $2 in return for the work that they do. Under non-depository financial institution supervision at 14.3.2, again, just bolstering those critical positions there and trying to tamp down the great degree of turnover there. Section 15, Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. A lot of work has gone into this section. Chair Lady Dempsey and her committee have done some incredible work here. The speaker has also thrown his weight behind the crisis that we're seeing unfold. And a lot of what you're going to see here is a recognition of the work of the Mental Health Commission that did a report this past year. And what you'll see is, in general, is a $36+ million add above what the governor had recommended. So right now, as it sits in the House version, you're seeing about $58 million additional money going into behavioral health in the state of Georgia. I know our friends in the Senate are looking at some other programs and some other things to do, so by the time it's all said and done, we will make a significant statement as it relates to mental health this year. Under adult addictive diseases, 15.1.1, see the restoration there as it relates to the hepatitis C projects. 15.1.2, restoration of core services there and providing parity among those service providers. There are about 11 providers that will be impacted with an additional 2,189 individuals that will be served this coming year. 15.2.5, an ad that we did in the amended budget that stood up these 16 new crisis beds. This is a one-of-a-kind center. No one else in the country is doing this, and what we're doing here is annualizing the operation funds there. 5% rate increase at 15.2.6 for our providers out there. Again, going into core service categories. 15.2.7, the non-waiver services for family support. Again, a restoration in core services. At 2.8 and 2.9, both are language items. And the first one deals with the Appendix K waiver request at CMS, asking that some changes be made there, especially during this pandemic, so that those services can be handled out in the communities. Those are non-institutionalized settings. Of course, out in the communities is where we're having the struggle. 2.9 relates to the 188 families that we've all heard, many of us have heard from many of them as it relates to some proposed changes. What we're saying here is the General Assembly is making our statement that we intend to continue to support those families as best we can. Moving on to adult forensic services at 15.3.3, the addition of 6 forensic peer mentors, one of the recommendations coming out of the commission. 15.4.4, as it relates to the new 988 helpline that will be stood up nationally. We're in good shape here in Georgia as far as the steps we've already taken. There will be some additional steps needed to be taken, and what we're doing here is providing for those as it relates to those folks in crisis. 15.4.5, adding a full-time epidemiologist tasked with exclusively examining suicide data in our state to help us better understand how it is that we can help individuals before they go into crisis. 15.4.6, again, another add there as it relates to core services, and that will impact about 12 providers statewide and a little over 5,200 individuals. Moving on to child and adolescent mental health services at 15.8.1, you'll see an increase there for the APEX program of $2 million as we continue to roll that program out across our state and our schools. 15.8.2, again, an addition of $102,000 to help with the funding for the suicide prevention training in our school system and bringing on board a youth suicide prevention specialist. So again, between the governor's proposal and our proposal, an add of about $58.5 million as it relates to mental health services. Section 16, Department of Community Affairs, 16.9.1, an addition there at the Southern Georgia Regional Commission's Area Agency on Aging, $168,000 there to help hire behavioral health specialists to work with seniors that are in their homes and help them maintain a clean and healthy atmosphere in which to live in. Just one of those programs that we're starting, or one of those problems that we're starting to see blossom out there as well, and we're just trying to head that off. Under state economic development programs, as it relates to REBA at 1611.1, we're doing a $5 million reduction there. There still remains about $10 million in the base, $10 or $11 million in the base there. Those are the funds, kind of the deal closing funds that the state of Georgia uses. We've built up a little bit of a reserve, a little bit of headroom, so we feel comfortable in taking that at this point in time. Still under DCA as it relates to the One Georgia Authority, again, agreeing with the governor as he has promoted the Rural Innovation Fund, almost $40 million there. Also agreeing with him as it relates to the Broadband Infrastructure Program, 15.2, and then at 15.3, again, annualizing an ad that we'd placed in there during the amended budget for our grants administrator and to help keep the maps updated. Section 17, Department of Community Health. 17.1.5, we have all seen the dollar amount grow tremendously within DCH over the last 8 or 10 years. In years past, when it came to balancing the budget, one of the places that we always seemed to go was to department admin, whether it was in DCH or wherever, and clip it a little bit, clip it a little bit, and clip it a little bit more. Well, now they've grown to the point in the dollars that they're handling, the business that they're doing, that we're needing to try to kind of backfill some of those positions. So what we're saying here is that we're providing for 2 senior leadership positions at DCH to help them with their programs. Under healthcare access and improvement at 17.4.1 and 4.2, you'll see the one-time fund capture and then providing for 2 new FQHCs, one in Jeff Davis County and one in Marion County. And then under healthcare facility regulation, annualizing what we had started in the amended budget of about $7.4 million as it relates to those healthcare nursing home surveys and the work that's needed to be done there. Moving on down to age, blind, and disabled at 17.7, you'll see at 17.74 just a capture of savings for the enhanced FMAP program. That allows us to do a few other things then within the Medicaid budgets. At 17.78, you'll see a 2% increase for our skilled nursing centers. 17.79, you'll see catch up on the liability insurance for the skilled nursing centers. And then at 7.10, you will see a 10% rate increase for our home and community-based service providers. Been many years since there's been an increase there. Of course, these are the individuals that go out and help individuals stay in their homes instead of being placed in the skilled nursing centers. It's a much lower cost to the state for those individuals to stay at home than it is to be institutionalized or placed in a nursing home. And so we just feel that it's time that we catch them kind of up to where we've been lacking over the last few years. Down under Medicaid low income, you'll see also an adjustment in the FMAP at 17.8.4, capturing some of that savings. At 17.8.10, you'll see the increase for 18 select primary care codes, primary care and OBGYN codes to the 2020 Medicare levels at just a little over $7 million there. And then under Peach Care, again, capturing some of the savings from the enhanced FMAP we're seeing right now. Then at 17.10.1, under the State Health Benefit Plan, doing a pilot project with a program, it's a package that's biodegradable. If you're a member of SHBP and you've been put on some type of opioid painkiller and you don't need all of those, and trying to help with the opioid epidemic that we've been seeing across the state, because a lot of folks, unfortunately, family members steal those medications. This is a bag system. You pour the medication in, put a small amount of water in it, seal it up, and within about 15 or 20 minutes, that medication is dissolved and it's no longer effective. Toss it right in the trash can, the packaging biodegrades. So we're wanting to look at that and see if that's something that is applicable across the state in general, doing it through a pilot with SHBP. Under graduate medical education at 17.12.4, you'll see funds for the initial work to establish a GME program in the Southeast Georgia healthcare system. Down in that corner of the state, we're still lacking a little bit on trying to stand some of those things up. 17.13.1, you'll see the second year for the 7-year plan there with Mercer and their expansion of the medical school over at Columbus. They're getting ready to kick that off, and by the time it is fully stood up and running, there will be 240 students there by 2027. 17.13.2, you heard Chairman Hitchens, still refer to him as Colonel, mentioned during his presentation on GBI earlier this morning the need for medical examiners in our state and across the country. There are about 1,100 of those positions nationwide, and about 600 of those positions are currently vacant. Only 500 are filled, and many of those 500 are reaching the point of retirement as well. There's really no good training system within, at least within Georgia, to start addressing that issue. And so Mercer and their medical college and Dr. Gene Sumner down there have been gracious enough to partner up with us to start helping produce some of those individuals. We'll get to use them in the GBI lab as interns as part of the program, but I'm excited about what we're going to be seeing there. Section 18, community supervision, no changes. Department of Corrections. What you'll see in Department of Corrections is just going to be the annualization of what we did in the amended budget, with them taking vacant positions and using those for a 10% pay increase for their corrections officers. Section 20, Department of Defense, no changes. Section 21, Department of Driver Services. You'll look there at 21.2.2. Chairman Watson and his subcommittee heard compelling testimony from our friends at Department of Driver Services as it related to their turnover rate. Very high turnover rate among individuals that are very low paid but are handling some very sensitive information. Our Social Security numbers, our driver's license numbers, our mailing addresses, our dates of birth, and you want to make sure those folks don't get in a position that they have to think about doing untoward things. And so what we're doing there is proposing a 10% salary increase for those individuals working in those customer service centers at $3.2 million. And at 21.2.3, many of you saw the speaker's press conference yesterday talking about the Georgia ID program. So there's an add there of $250,000 to fund what he had mentioned yesterday. Section 22 under decal, you'll see an increase at 22.1.1 in the CAPS program. This will provide an additional 625 slots. Moving on down to 22.3.3, you'll see an increase, one of the first increases since 2010 to our pre-K program of 2.5% at $1.7 million, and then a pre-K specialist position that we had to eliminate last year, providing funds to stand that position back up. Section 23, Economic Development, an adjustment there at 23.11 for increased rent. At 23.5.2, one project manager position under Global Commerce, and then at 23.6.1 under International Relations and Trade. We have individuals that we contract with worldwide that represent Georgia in many countries, and their expenses are continuing to go up, so those contracts continue to go up, and so we're just making sure that we've able to maintain those relationships. 23.7.1, a slight savings. Employee that was there under TRS is no longer there. 23.9.2, an addition for the World Congress Center at $2.5 million. These will be one-time funds, again, to try to get them through the shutdown and the lack of conventions. As we all know and understand, the World Congress Center is one of the premier destinations for trade shows and all sorts of conventions across this country. We have an obligation. It's a state property. We have spent somewhere north of $800 million on that facility since it opened with its initial construction and the additions we've made through the years. And so we have an obligation to continue to make sure that it functions. Under Section 24, Ag Education, again, you'll see the adjustments for the teacher retirement system scattered throughout here. Under Ag Education at 24.13, restoration to the extended day and extended year program, and then all the other programs that fall under it, pulling back to a 60% restoration on par with QBE. Then at 24.1.4, we had initially planned to do these young farmer positions last year, but as we went into the cut program, we had to pull those out. But this will establish 5 young farmer positions in Baldwin, Fulton, Pickens, Ware, and Worth counties. Moving on down under charter schools, just increasing the base at 24.4.3 for the charter facilities grants pursuant to House Bill 430 from the 2017 session. Under curriculum development, moving an item from career tech education at 24.22.4, just moving it up here into this program just helps everything flow a little bit better on that as it relates to the Rural Teacher Training Initiative with our friends and partners at Georgia Bio. 24.8.4, you'll see a formula true up there. At 24.10.3, as it relates to a pilot program for access to STEM and AP STEM, Chairman Jones had this idea to use kind of spare bandwidth, for lack of a better term, of teachers in some of our more urban counties, and he's had quite a number of conversations with Forsyth and Cherokee counties, and they're willing to reach out into the state, into some counties that do not are not able to offer these programs, to see if we can make those programs available to those students. In doing so, if it's successful, then we'll look at going further with that in the future. Under non-QBE, you'll see at 24.11.2, feminine hygiene products, that brings the base there to $1.25 million. At the residential treatment facilities at 24.11.3, 11.5, and 11.6, you'll see those transactions there. And what those do is basically net them out at a zero cut, but recognizes using federal funds. And then on sparsity grants, just a true up there at 11.4. Moving on down to school nutrition, you'll see an add there of $5 million. We have not been able to do anything there for school nutrition for a while, and felt like that of all times it was probably needed now more than ever. with what those incredible unsung heroes in our school cafeterias have been doing to get meals out to students across the state. 2413-2, again, formula true up. Same holds true at 14.1, formula true up there. 15.1, again, formula true up. 16.1, true up. 17.2 and 17.3, rolling those two items together, because that's actually how it's contained within QBE, and again, making the adjustments necessary for the true ups on that line. Also at 17.4, 17.5, and 17.7. Again, another true up down under RESAs at 18.2. You'll see that. Moving on over to the State Charter School Commission. Just reflecting an increase of other funds. They can reserve up to 3% of their school earnings to help cushion them for growth spikes, and that's what we're doing, is recognizing those additional funds there. Under Technology and Career Education at 24.22.3, again, the same that you saw under Ag Education as it relates to extended day and extended year programs. And then at 22.4, you'll see the move that I mentioned earlier under Curriculum Development. 24.23.3, as it relates to a pilot program on computer science principles AP exams, doing a pilot program there to help fund those exams for those children that have been taking those courses. Moving on to ERS, under Section 25, you'll see two things there. 25.3.2, you'll see an adjustment there for PSERS. Again, our cafeteria workers, custodians, and bus drivers, just taking it from $1,550 per year of service to $1,575, an adjustment of $1.6 million. And then at 25.4.1, as it relates to our retirees, urging our friends at the ERS board to provide a 13th check, as we have done in years past. State Forestry Commission, Section 26. You'll see some slight adjustments there. Those all relate to the increase in workers' compensation premiums that they have seen with some of the fires that they've been helping fight in other parts of the country, and storm response as well. Section 27, Office of the Governor's Emergency Fund, 27.1.1, basically reducing that back to what had been kind of the traditional base of about just a shade over $11 million. We had added $10 million last year, not knowing exactly what was going to be needed for the COVID response. Fortunately, they've been able to use CARES Act dollars for much of the need there. I will remind you that in the amended budget, it was still funded at the 21. We added an additional 4 just in case there are some spring storms that hit us. We'll be prepared for that in the current fiscal year. Moving on to Georgia Professional Standards Commission, you'll see some additions there. One deals with dealing with program needs in the Ethics Division and the Educator Preparedness Division. I can't get the words to come out exactly right. Then under 6.4 there, the feds are eliminating the funding for the Troops to Teachers program. That has been something that's been incredibly successful here in the state of Georgia, and we're picking it up and saying that we're going to continue that with state funds. 27.7.2 under Governor's Office of Student Achievement, just itemizing out the dollars that are there under that program. 7.3 is an increase for the Growing Readers program, and then at 7.4, that item then will roll up after this into the Governor's School Leadership Academy that is also contained in line 7.2. And then under Office of State Inspector General, providing funds for a vehicle and some automation software as it relates to the work that they're doing across the state. Under Section 28, Department of Human Services, under Child Welfare Services 2851, you'll see an addition, or not an addition, but a restoration of contract funds for the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children. Moving on now to Office of the Insurance Commissioner, Section 29, 29.3.3. The addition of 2 building inspectors for the building inspection program. Of course, that relates in many ways to not only economic development, but also to personal safety as it relates to individuals going into buildings across the state. And we want to make sure that we're not in the way and holding up projects being completed because we don't have enough examiners to go around the state to make these checks. GBI Section 30, you'll see under Forensic Scientific Services, it's 30.3.1. We have annualized what we put in the amended budget as it relates to our medical examiners, allowing a pay raise there for those individuals so they can keep them, then be competitive as they go out onto the market trying to hire these individuals. We were seeing that many of our docs in that division were being hired away from us by counties here in the metro area that were able to pay considerably more. That was causing quite an issue and around the state. And if you talk to them today, I talked to my sheriff on Monday, they've been having to hold 2 bodies in Barra County because there's no room in the morgue right now in Decatur. So trying to work through that issue, he called wanting me to do something. I said, well, you just happen to be in luck. I'm getting ready to do it. I became a hero in his eyes right quick when I told him we were one step ahead of him. So that's something that, in all seriousness, something that our law enforcement community across the state is really needing some help with. 30.4.2, you'll see the annualization of some sworn positions that were added. Then moving on down under CJCC at 30.5.3, reducing the amount in the base. There's still $5 million in the base there. Those funds have not been expended yet. Once they are, and we kind of get that program fully up and running, then we'll know what the right number is there going forward. Under family violence, you'll see a 2% rate increase for the domestic violence shelters. It's 30.7.2. And then at 30.7.3, the addition of 2 new family violence centers in the state as well. Juvenile justice, no changes. Department of Labor, Section 32. You'll see our half as it relates to the new position there that was added in the amended budget. Section 33, Department of Law, no changes. Department of Natural Resources, no changes. Pardons and paroles, no changes. State properties, no changes. Public defenders, Section 37. You'll see there restoration of the FY21 reduction at 37.1.2. And then as you go under public defenders, you'll see the add for the Columbia Circuit at 37.2.1, and then the annualization of the new circuits in Cobb, Flint, and Ogeechee. Then it's 37.2.5. You'll see 5 new juvenile assistant public defenders. If you recall, we had added some assistant DAs over in district attorneys, and so we're trying to keep that parity there. Moving on to 37.2.6 as it relates to leave payouts, they're having to hold positions vacant to use that salary, cannibalize that salary because they're having to do leave payouts as individuals leave, and so we're trying to keep that from happening. And then on 37.2.7, again, another retention issue within that area as well we're trying to address. Public health in Section 38. A restoration at Georgia Core of $100,000 there. Then at 38.1.2 as it relates to the Sickle Cell Foundation, restoring the cut that we had to make in FY21 of $115,000, as well as adding to that for some of their increased needs that they have. And I'll also point out that in a minute when we get over into Regents, you'll see another ad there as it relates to sickle cell under the Georgia Research Alliance. 38.1.3, additional funds for the Feminine Hygiene Product Program. Under Department Administration at 38.3.2. In the amended budget, we had added some admin positions there, much as what we're proposing to do here in community health, and what we're doing here at 3.2 is actually annualizing those. Under epidemiology at 38.5.1, you'll see a $1.5 million add there for the maintenance of the new system that we provided for them on vaccine tracking program in the amended budget. Moving on now to the Department of Public Safety. Under Public Safety, you'll see several common adds throughout the program: 39.1.1, 39.2.1, 39.4.2, 39.5.2, as it relates to adding 2 new job classes there for our State Patrol, a Master and Senior Trooper program. If a trooper stays on the road their entire career, once they hit about 8 years, there's no way for them to progress up in the salary structure. But adding the Master and the Senior program will allow them, once they hit certain times, to actually see an increase in their salary going forward. You'll see a reduction at 39.4.1. There's still about $12.3 million in the base there. It will allow for 3 trooper schools this coming year. We have used some internal funds there, utilizing some existing funds at 39.4.3 and 39.5.3 to pick up some of the bond requests that they actually had for some improvements at some of the posts and some of the way stations across the state. On down at Firefighter Standards and Training Council, you'll see 39.7.1, increasing funds for virtual testing resources. About 70% of our firefighters across the state are volunteers, and it's not easy for them to be able to take off from their job to go get mandated training for 3 or 4 days for something that they're doing as a volunteer. This will just allow this training to be conducted virtually instead of them having to go to Gypstick down at Forsyth for 3 or 4 days. 39.8.2 is a computer upgrade, and then at 39.10.1, again, some software upgrades there for them. Public Service Commission, Section 40, you'll see at 40.1.1, an add there of $50,000 for legal fees. We think will be a one-time necessary addition there. Section 41, Board of Regents. Throughout this, you will see several restoration items pointed out throughout the document. And what we've done there, these are programs that are directly related to teaching. And so what we've done is come back with a 60% restoration to match what we've done in K-12 education. And you'll see that at 4.1.4, 4.3.4. As we go down the page, under the Enterprise Innovation Institute, 41.4.1 is a 4.4, is a language item as it relates to Invest Georgia. We had proposed to move last year. However, it's not doable according to the statute. Again, going on to the restorations at 41.5.2, 41.6.2. Then at 41.8.3, a reduction there of one-time funds for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program. That was needed for a federal match up front, and so we're able to capture that back. 41.9.2, I mentioned just a little bit ago as it related to sickle cell that you wanted to be looking under Georgia Research Alliance as it relates to that. So we're doing they've come to us with a very sound proposal to endow a chair that will focus solely on research as it relates to sickle cell. This will be in a partnership with Morehouse, CHOA, and with Emory University. All of the partners put up an equal amount to endow the chair, and then they go to work. And so we're excited about that and what that will mean to this state. I didn't realize until I was meeting with them that CHOA actually, the work that they're doing at CHOA, Children's Hospital of Atlanta, actually makes them one of the largest research institutions in the country, in the world for that matter, as it relates to sickle cell. I had no idea until we were meeting with GRA the other day. Moving on to Georgia Tech Research Institute, again, the restoration at 41.10.2, Marine Institute, the restoration at 11.2, Marine Extension, restoration at 12.2, Medical College of Georgia at 41.13.1, restoration there at $1.6 million. And then moving on down to public libraries. If you remember in the amended budget, we thought we'd only be able to do it as a one-time help to them to raise their per capita materials grant from 35 cents per capita to 40 cents, but we were able to raise that hopefully on a permanent basis to 40 cents per capita. Y'all all see your libraries, y'all hear from your libraries, y'all go to your libraries, and you know what an important role they play in our communities. 4115.3, the restoration there. 4118.7 under teaching. This relates to Augusta University and their 3+3 program, where they're actually able to get their graduates out the door a year early. It's an accelerated program, and they're doing an incredible job with it, and so we're just trying to help them continue to stand that program up. Again, 4119.4, 60% restoration there. Under GMC at 4123.2, you'll see a formula true-up as it relates to an enrollment decline that they've had there. Moving on now to Department of Revenue at 42.3.1 under industry regulation. That also kind of ties to 42.9.2 as it relates to standing up their requirement per statute as it relates to vaping products and the regulation of those vaping products. So you'll see 6 tax examiners, 3 auditors, and 4 criminal investigators at 42.3.1. And then at 42.9.2, you'll see an attorney and a legal secretary add there. Under Secretary of State, 43.5.1, professional licensing boards, you'll see a temporary addition there as it relates to the temporary permits for our nurses to be able to practice. Those that have retired and need recertification, or those coming from other states, pursuant to the governor's executive order back in January, just allows for that processing of those applications to happen quicker. Under the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission at 43.7.1, now continuing to stand that program up and make sure that they're equipped with all the individuals that they need to watch after that program. Right now, currently, there's 1 individual there. Those licenses have been applied for, the monies have been received, and now it's getting down to the point of actually producing and processing. So we've got to make sure that we regulate it the way it needs to be regulated. Moving on to student finance, section 44 under dual enrollment, just a true up there. Looking at the cut that we had taken in the amended 21 and annualizing it here in the FY22. Engineering scholarship at 44.3.1, again right sizing it with an addition of $192,500. And then under Hope Grant at 44.7.1, you'll see a formula true up there as it relates to their hold harmless. Moving on over to section 45, teacher retirement, there are no changes. Section 46, the Technical College System of Georgia. Just a capturing of the Rural Technical Worker Pilot Program. That program had not gotten off the ground as of the time that we were putting this budget together. However, if we're able to get it rolling, then we will revisit that at a later time, and that's the only adjustment under the Technical College System. Moving on to the Department of Transportation. You know, you give folks a new chairmanship, and they feel like they got all kind of power and everything, and that's certainly been the case with Chairman Perkle. Just almost got carried away. We had to pull him back in a little bit. But no, in all seriousness, he and Abby Day, his analysts, have done an incredible job of dealing with a lot of money that is put in a very complicated way through statute. House Bill 170 from 2015 lines out a lot of that. And so you'll see an adjustment at 47.1.1. Funds are moved there from the capital maintenance program. Capital maintenance program then is backfilled with federal dollars, additional federal dollars that are coming to the state. It's much cheaper for us to use state dollars on capital construction projects, about 30% cheaper and about a year sooner on most projects, if we do not have to meet all of the additional federal guidelines that many times replicate everything we already require anyway for a state project. But you can't take the okay from the state inspection or the state sign off and say that it's okay for the feds. They make you go back and do it again, which is, I feel, very wasteful. You'll see language items at 47.1.2 and 1.3, just clarification of the intents there. And then at 4714, utilizing existing funds, $500,000 for some road safety improvements. Then under capital maintenance, you'll see the adjustment there for the ability to use the CARES funds. Under construction admin at 47.3.2, just changing that program name to Program Delivery Administration, which better fits what they're actually doing. Then under intermodal, you'll see at 47.6.1, the recognition of funds generated from House Bill 105, our rural transit guru, Representative Sam Watson, the bill that he carried last year. Those are the rideshare fees that are dedicated to transit. And so you'll see there that Athens-Clarke County Transit, they had a request for $1 million, and then we've got some other statewide transit programs for the remainder there. And then also a $6 million add at 47.6.2 as it relates to a very large regional economic development project that will be coming over here in West Atlanta at the Bankhead Station. And then some cash for an item on the state-owned rail lines of $50,000. Moving on to 47.13.4, the Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank. Just going back to its original FY21 funding, we had to pull some from there last year to balance up, just like we did many items, and then recognition of the bond debt at 47.13.5 related to the Garvey bonds that were sold in late December. No changes in Section 48, Veteran Services, no changes in Section 49, Workers' Comp, and then there's probably some of you that have some interest in Section 50, but we won't walk through those changes there as it relates to bonds. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I believe that was about 45 minutes total on.
You did great.
On a presentation.
All right. Thanks so much, Chairman England, and we know how hard you work on this and how hard the staff works on this all year long, and seems like it's an ever-moving target all the time. At this time, we'll take some questions if anyone has any. Who's number 72? Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the chairman, Chairman Ingram, on page 77 of 87 on the tracking sheet, under Transportation, Department of Transportation,
all right.
Could you expound on 47.1.3 a little more?
Yes, yep, absolutely. Just clarifying that we'll be using state funds of $6 million and federal funds of $4 million as it relates to what's called dark fiber in state DOT right-of-ways. DOT has quite an extensive statewide network already laid, and it's sitting there. Much of it is dark. They've put it in for future use. As they continue to use it, they realize their need may not be exactly as much as what they thought it had been originally. So there is actually existing fiber there that can be tied in to use in other communities statewide. So as you look at large state highways running up and down the road, typically there is fiber buried next door to it. And so just looking at a better way to utilize that fiber that's out there that's available and put it to work for us and put it to work for our communities across the state.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions. Don't have any online. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that House Bill 81 do pass by committee substitute.
Okay. Have a second, Mr. Perkins. All right. So having a first and having a second motion at this time, we'll say aye if you agree.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay. All opposed say no.
Aye.
All right. Hearing none. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, thank you to all of our members. A big hats off to our subcommittee chairs and the work that they've done, but especially Martha, Christine, and all the staff at the House Budget and Research Office, without which we would not be able to function. Thank you very much, and we are adjourned.